Joining us now to weigh in on the shock and awe in Washington, a guy who's been around the block a couple of times himself, even worked in the Reagan and the Nixon administrations, Patrick J. Buchanan. How are you, sir?
Doing fine, Sean. Looks like we're getting a little bit of action, doesn't it?
You know, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, what's funny is I noticed the media, all they want to talk about is the crowd size at the inauguration, and they want to call the president a liar and dishonest on pretty much everything that they can do, and they're at war with Trump personally. And meanwhile, while that distraction is going on, the rest of us are watching a president move at the speed of light, which, frankly, it's refreshing to see somebody keep their promises.
Well, it's not only refreshing, it's rather exciting, quite frankly. It looks as though the Trump folks really did line up the things they were going to do on a lot of major issues. We saw the pipelines this morning. You've just described the wall. You've described what's going to happen with regard to the refugees and the immigration policy. It looks like, I mean, they had all their ducks in a row, and they really moved with energy. And I think it's a terrific beginning, Sean, and I agree with you. Look, if the media wants to go over and find the 5 million or 3 million illegal aliens, let them go looking for them. And just keep the eyes on the prize. I would urge the Trump folks, but, do not recall a presidency which has moved so expeditiously and so strongly in its first week, and I think it's a very healthy sign, and I hope they're lined up for more action in the second and third weeks.
You know, isn't it amazing? I mean, during his inaugural speech, which Chuck Todd said was divisive, and he insulted all the other people that were there watching, and I'm thinking, well, I view the inaugural speech totally differently, that everything he said he would run on, that this is about we the people and about the forgotten man and about law and order and about all the things that he ran on, that he's reiterating that these were not just words, but they were promises, and he had criticized the all talk, no action people for all these years. I find this extraordinarily refreshing.
I did, and there's no question that it was what Donald Trump was saying was, look, I came here to confront this establishment, which is responsible for a lot of the things that have gone wrong in this country, and I'm going to keep my word, and you're going to look out for the folks who have been forgotten. And in foreign policy, we're going to stay out of these wars. We're going to put our own country first. I mean, who and what do people think we ought to put first but the American people and the American nation?
You know, it's more than that. You know, Pat, I spent an entire year, and I won't reiterate all my statistics. You've heard me say them to you many times. I said it on TV every day, and I said it on radio every day about millions in poverty on food stamps out of the labor force and a 51-year low of people owning their homes, which is the quintessential American dream. So if these efforts, I would argue this. Let me ask you this question, because you see presidencies through the prism of history. If Donald Trump fulfills his promises on lowering the corporate tax rate, bringing in trillions through repatriation, we'll know next week, I think either Tuesday or Thursday, he will announce Antonin Scalia's replacement. He's promised an originalist. He's promised to build the wall. He's moving on that. He's promised to vet refugees. He's moving on that. The economy is moving on. Ending burdensome regulation. He wants to get rid of 75+%. Well, that's going to unleash energy independence in this country. Won't his success be a direct correlation to promises kept?
It will not only be promises kept. You will have a new dramatic presidency, and the changes he will make in the country will have been rivaled only by those who made him on the other side, Franklin Roosevelt. What Donald Trump appears to be doing and is driving toward basically a new national independence and sovereignty where Americans are economically independent as well as politically independent. And there's a conservative Reaganite half to this whole program of, energizing the private sector by unleashing private enterprise in this country, deregulating to the degree that we can. And also what you mentioned is the tariffs. If he can impose, I think, a rising tariff, I don't go for a total protectionist tariff, but to raise revenues, to cut taxes on small businesses, as you said, repatriate those funds, and get folks investing and building in the United States. Over time, we can rebuild the independent national country we had and that we lost in this globalized era.
And on top of all of that, look what else he's done. He's invited in the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and he's talking about bilateral negotiations on trade, which will help them as they finish their Brexit exit. And similarly, he's invited the Prime Minister of Canada, the Prime Minister of Mexico to renegotiate NAFTA. And similarly, now he's reaching out to the Prime Minister of Israel and bringing him and trying to repair the relationship that was so damaged under Obama.
Right. Take Brexit. The Brits have pulled out of, basically are going to be pulling out of Europe going to be pulling out from under Brussels. And I do agree, and when you have economies that are as advanced as both Britain and the United States, and that are intertwined, and where we have cultural agreements, and we're very close to them, you get the old bilateral trade agreements between two countries that we used to do. It seems to me exactly proper, and I would hope the President would reach out to the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and say, look, we've been there in the 20th century, we were there in 1917, and we were there in 1941, and we're with you.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing, too, to watch the media. Have you ever seen a media more hostile towards a president than they are towards this one?
Yes, I mean,
it's... Well, okay.
But you're right. Let me say this about President Trump. Whatever you say about him, he did bring off a victory that's been unrivaled in terms of its shock since that of Harry Truman over Dewey, and he did take the worst abuse and beating day in and day out of any presidential candidate in my lifetime, certainly including even Richard Nixon in 1960 or in 1968. And what he is getting now is already almost from the national media like what Nixon was getting during Watergate when he had stumbled. But Donald Trump is getting it already.
But it seems that their goal is, and I go back to where they're focused. I mean, from the day he was elected, then it became about the recount. Then it became, somehow it evolved into the Russians and influence. And even though none of the evidence proved any of this, then it became the breathless reporting about, forgive me, Golden Shower Gate in this dossier that apparently was leaked by BuzzFeed, which had never been corroborated by anybody. Then it leaks into, what's the size of the inauguration? Let's fixate and let's focus on that. And let's focus in on Donald Trump suggests there's voter fraud. Well, there's tons of evidence, as I've been mentioning today, that there's voter fraud out there. And they're acting as though, this doesn't exist. We know it exists. I went over all the numbers in the last hour.
Well, let me say this, Sean. What the reason the media in this city are reacting as they are is that the election of 2016 was an utter repudiation of their leadership or lack of leadership in this country that has left us in the situation we're in today. And what the country was saying was, we are through with you people. You failed. What Cromwell said to the Long Parliament, you have sat here too long for any good you have done here. In the name of God, go. And here they are endorsing Donald Trump, who is someone they loathe and despise. So the reactions in that sense are normal. They're going to have to try to demonstrate any way they can think of that he is not legitimate, that somehow it was all stolen, it was taken away, and they still remain really respected and revered by the American people.
By the way, what do you make? Go ahead, finish.
No, when you take a look at the decline in when we went after the media under Agnew, we did it defensively. We'd spent the first year and we turned around because we just had to fight for our lives. But this media, quite frankly, they're down to 14% now. Their credibility is shot. It was not shot when they were battling under Nixon until we got into that war and got going.
All right, stay right there. I want to ask you a question about the Republican Party when we get back. Patrick J. Buchanan is with us. We continue from our nation's capital. Our toll-free telephone number is 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. Some very disturbing reports as it relates to the Muslim Brotherhood and radical Islamic terror, as Donald Trump is now trying to secure our border and vet refugees and create a safer homeland. There are some issues we need to go over with Rich Higgins and some others. That's coming up, and much more. Right, as we continue from our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., Pat, I want to go back to the election. And here I am every day on this program, and the Wall Street Journal is attacking me, and National Review is attacking me, and the elitist establishment is attacking me. And, Jeb Bush is saying he's never going to build that wall. And one so-called intellectual conservative after another says he's not going to appoint an originalist. He's not going to be able to do any of the things he says. It looks like they were not only wrong, but spectacularly so. Thoughts?
First, I agree with you. First, I think you did a great job during that campaign, Sean. You were really out there doing battle and under fire, along with Trump.
Hey, Pat, with all due respect, I learned this from you. Pat, they had my obituary written 50 different ways. But you know what? I fought for what I believed, and I also have known this man for a long time.
Well, too, clearly it showed it was authentic, it was passionate, it was genuine. You were fighting, and you were in battles with all the Republicans. But let me say this, Sean. I do agree. Now that the election is over, that again, I go back and I know Nixon's supposedly a discredited figure, but the idea was once he got in and won, we had the Goldwater folks with us, and you got Nixon with us. Then you tried to peel off the conservative Democrats, north and south, to put together a great coalition. And I would urge the president, look, I know these folks in the Republican Party, especially in the establishment, et cetera, they were all on your case, But now, if you're going to put together a coalition that's going to last for a decade, I think we've got to make sure that we don't make any unnecessary enemies in the party. But Trump sets the guide. Here's where we're going. We're going to march there. We agree on some things, on taxes and things like that. On the wall, you may not agree, but I'm taking the lead here. But keep the whole thing together, because we got both houses. We got the whole country now. And if you hold it together, you can draw in people who want action and who don't want to sit there and listen to all this nonsense from the mainstream media.
What do you think? I only have 30 seconds left. All those people that were wrong, what are your thoughts about their future?
All the folks who were wrong, I think Martin Luther King, I've used his line before, keep your eyes on the prize and move on. They were wrong. If they won't admit it, so what? But go ahead and do what he's doing now. Act, and pay no attention to a lot of the carping and the criticism. Just get the job done.
To me, and tell me if you agree with this, I believe every agenda item, every promise kept, that'll be a direct correlation. Rasmussen now has him at a 50% job approval rating. Pretty amazing jump in less than a week in the presidency.
I think, Sean, that the very fact people are picking up the newspapers, you see 2 and 3 stories on the front page in addition to, talking about the illegal aliens voting. You see, he did this on the pipeline. He's doing this on immigration. He's doing this on the wall. He's done this already. TPP is gone. I think the idea of action, the idea of taking decisions and moving, I think will impress people more than anything.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, Pat, it's going to be a fascinating 4 years. Watching the media bubble and fizz like Alka-Seltzer is going to be pretty entertaining, and the snowflakes make for good copy every single day. So, Pat Buchanan, thank you for being with us.